Hi, sports fans. Welcome to Vitality Sports Media. And I have a lot of special guests here with me today. I guess we can start with Taylor and work our way to London to Kimura. Taylor, if you want to go first, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Taylor Francis. I'm from Kennesaw, Georgia, and I attended Gardner-Webb University. I just recently graduated.
Hi, I'm London Golis. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm a sophomore at McDonough School.
Hi, I'm Kimora Bailey. I'm from McDonough, Georgia. I attended Winthrop University and I just transferred to the University of Cincinnati.
Great. I'm so glad to have you guys. So this interview is basically going to be about what is it like being a minority playing lacrosse, playing a dominant white sport at the end of the day. So I guess what my first question for you guys is, how did you guys first start playing lacrosse? Taylor, you can start first.
So I started playing lacrosse in elementary school. It was like fifth grade, and they were like, oh, like this new sport, like you guys should try it, like come out. So me and my friends went and started playing, and it just kind of stuck. Like I played basketball and soccer when I was younger, but lacrosse just stuck.
It's stuck. London, what about you?
So for McDonough, we had to play a sport each semester in 7th and 8th grade. And I knew that it was either going to be lacrosse or softball for spring. And so in 6th grade, I was like, why don't I try rec lacrosse? Mm-hmm. And then I ended up just sticking with it after that.
Exactly. Kimora, what about you?
So my situation was my mom actually brought it home to us. So my sister started first, and she's 2 years older than me. So I had to copy everything she did. And so she started playing. And then in 6th grade, that's when I started right after her.
Exactly. So I guess all of us kind of started around that middle school or high school mark. Great. So, how do you guys think the game has changed from then to now? And I guess we really can start with London. London, if you could give us some insight on how lacrosse is in today's society, because, we're a lot older, we're going to be considered old heads. So enlighten us.
In my situation, lacrosse hasn't changed much because I've always been in a situation where it's like lacrosse is very big. I go to a predominantly white private school, so it's a big sport at my school, and so I haven't really known much else. Like I haven't seen it in a different light than I already was.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. What about you, Taylor?
It's changed a lot since I started. It was nobody really knew about the sport when I got around. Like everybody was like, what? Like the sport with the sticks? And I'm like, yeah, it's like this. And, explaining it like, oh, it's kind of like soccer and basketball. And like now people, when I say lacrosse, they're like, oh, I've heard of that. Like, and they'll, say things here and there. And even just ESPN Plus, like they never used to show lacrosse as much as they did. But just the other day I was at Juicy Crab and I looked at the screen and I was like, oh my gosh, like,
What about you, Kimora?
Yeah, so for me, it was really, I saw commitment deadlines at such an early age change, because I know my experience, coaches would put like strict deadlines on me, and I was in 9th, 10th grade, so it was very stressful. So I seen that change a lot with the new rule, September 1st. And then the speed of the game has changed a lot with like shot clock and quarters and the intensity due to the change, like the speed of the game. And then recruitment has changed because now they're looking for multi-sport athletes. So like athletes who are playing 3 to 2 sports.
Yes. I think overall what I've noticed in the game that has changed, like you hit on recruitment. I feel like recruitment is probably off the field is in the biggest thing that has changed lacrosse. I just look at, all I know is from how things were, when Taylor and I committed to our schools, like we didn't take media day pictures in the uniforms. We didn't do that. That wasn't a thing. But now it's like we have to bring out the whole shebang, boom, like we see with other bigger sports like basketball, football, and track. Those are things that you would see those athletes, they dress up, they take the pictures. But lacrosse, it was kind of just I'm a lacrosse player. I go to the school, I fill it out, see if I like it. No, now it's like they let you really see, do you feel like you're a player here? Let's put on the uniform. Here's one of our sticks, like I definitely, but I do think it has grown for the best though. What do you think is the biggest difference with lacrosse down south and up north?
So I think the biggest difference is maybe the opportunities. Just because I know for me personally living in McDonough, I have to travel an hour and a half out to just get a good coach or a person that knows about lacrosse well to train me. Lacrosse in the South or in the North, I might say, is always going to be, a coach's playground. So they're always going to go recruit there first before they come to the South. So I think that's the biggest difference, especially in my recruiting process. I would always try to go on travel teams that go to, the northern states so I could get more exposure. Even now, I have to travel an hour and a half right now to go to a trainer to get, that college training back before I go to school.
Yeah. Well, personally, I think that the biggest difference with lacrosse in the North, in the South is I think the kind of players that you find. I think it's a difference because we aren't taught that, the makeup model for a lacrosse player, the pass first, different things like that. We're taught to really go to cage, do this. Like, to me, that is the difference between North and South. And so I feel like when you pick players from down South, a lot of times they're kind of looked at as ball hogs or different things like this. But that is just what we're used to doing. Essentially, what they don't realize is that's what we're taught. That's how we're taught to play, So I feel like that's the biggest difference to me overall is just the makeups of the player and how they think the game should be played is completely different because we're taught different.
I agree. And I think that has to do too with like the just the way that the South has is new to the sport. So it's like a lot of the players are just kind of like more as raw athletes. I mean, the people in North are raw athletes as well, but raw athletes in the sense of there's not a lot of training for lacrosse. So they're just kind of like, I'm just playing. I just love it. And I want to do this. I want to try this, whereas in the North, they have so much more structure and it's years that they've been doing these things. So they have
I do kind of feel like that has a pro and con though to it. I feel like it's the same thing. I feel like lacrosse suffers from what the NFL suffered from years ago, like how they used to make up the model for a quarterback. And I feel like that's what lacrosse suffers from, that same thing of this player's good at this player is good at that. That whole, it's like a model, it's a scheme that I feel like coaches follow or that they look at when it's choosing players for these different positions, if that makes sense. And I feel like sometimes it's like every player is not the same. And just because that player doesn't play that player from up north, that does not mean that they don't have the capabilities, or they can't play. Or that does not even mean that they can't learn it. And I feel like sometimes a lot of coaches may be afraid to go down south because some players are missing a lot of the basic things, because we rely on our athleticism to get us, where we are.
Off of that, I think a lot of times in the South, going around different teams, a lot of coaches are struggling with finding players in general. So what they're doing is they're searching in other sports. So I see a lot of basketball players starting to play lacrosse. So like Talon said, you start to see those, or like you said, you start to see those players that are star athletes because they're getting more raw talent, just talent, athletic athletes in general to start playing lacrosse in the South. Not to say they don't do that in the North, but I start to see that now in the South as well.
Yeah, that's how I started playing lacrosse. I'm originally a basketball player, and my coach, it was mandatory for us to do a spring sport during basketball. And I was that kid, I was 10th grade JV. I was happy about my JV championship, guys. I wasn't going to go to college off basketball. I knew that girls from my school committed to Stony Brook, Auburn, Texas A&M, so that's just what I was up against. You either had it or you didn't. And I just didn't. So, but in lacrosse, I had it. I knew I had it to get me to the next level. and I had it natural. I had the natural talent to get me to the next level because I didn't pick up a stick until 10th grade. So I knew as a player coming into college, some of the basics I missed because of things like you guys named, whether it's proper coaching, location, and different things like that. So how do you guys think that the game has developed for Black players being in lacrosse?
I think that it's made leaps and bounds, but I think there's so much more that they can do. Like I think from when I started, like, I didn't really see any Black people in the sport. And now, like, we have all Black people on this panel. And it's just like, even going to like, college, I remember playing against Kimura and being like, and I knew exactly everything that she did and what she did. Cause I was like, she's the only Black girl on that team. Like, like we're all connected. So I think that I've seen more people come to the sport. And I mean, Jayla, like on our team, we've had 3 Black players. So I'm like, wow, that's the most I've ever had as a teammate. So it's
yes, essentially.
Right. Like I feel like we've come a long way, but there's still more to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure if it has changed too much. Just because, I mean, you go on the field and you can count the amount of Black girls on one hand, if not 2 fingers. So it's kind of hard to say it has changed. Like you guys said, it's nice to have teammates now because I know like on some of the travel teams I've been on, I've been the only one. So it has grown in that aspect. But I will say it would be nice to have, like, to see it grow more and have, being able to count more than on 2 hands, the amount of Black girls on the field. So I can't say it has changed too much, but yeah.
So as you were saying, like, I feel like for me, it hasn't, on my club team, I'm the only Black girl, but I feel like at school, we have some very successful girls that are going to very good colleges that are Black. And it's just like, at my age, I'm able to like look up to more girls. I'm able to have more role models in college that are Black instead of just it only being white girls that I can look up to. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And to add to that, after, when the Black Lives Matter movement was going on, I noticed a lot of, meetings and actually having to talk. So that was really nice because I think that it brought more awareness to the topic. So I think my team was a bit more educated about the topic, but I don't think it stopped after that, So I think it can continue, not just for the movement per se, but like continue in the future, not just because, this is the hot topic. No, it needs to be the educational piece every year, every second. So.
Exactly. I feel like at the end of the day, you can't deny that, lacrosse is missing not just, Black girls, but just minorities overall. But what do you guys think we can do in the Black community to grow the sport? Because I'm big on things start within. And, the side of town that I grew up on is like, I got clowned for playing lacrosse. Like I got laughed at, nothing was taken serious. People would see me walking around with my stick and would try and take my stick and swing it like a baseball bat. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, it was just a joking thing. It was like, like, you play lacrosse, what's that? But I think the problem starts from within. I feel like we have to expose each other more in our community to this sport. I feel like a lot of times, like, the Black community, we can't rely so much on everybody else to do it for us because there's things that we can do from within to help each other out. And I feel like for one, it just starts with, like you said, London. I never thought about from that aspect that you just talked about, like we're thinking like, okay, it's just one of us, it's just 2 of us, but it's girls that actually see us and they're looking up to us just for being on the team. It's not about records or this. It's just like, wow, somebody looks like me is playing this sport. I can get there, So I didn't even, look at it from that perspective. But I think one thing that we can do as a community is expose each other more.
I was supposed to say, like, I agree with like both of those statements. Like what London said about, being a role model, like I never even like thought about. Like, yeah, like growing up, I never even saw any Black girls in college.
Yeah.
And I think that, just recruitment. Like my mom is a really big recruiter for lacrosse. Like she goes around to all the Black girls in her school and she's like, you should really just try out this sport. Like it's really interesting, like it's new and you should just try it. And, I think that young girls are really receptive to sports than I think that society realizes. And I think that just lacrosse is not even on their radar because, when you grow up, whenever I thought about playing sports, it was just basketball, maybe soccer, so I think just putting it on their radar will help.
I mean, usually the first thing that people see, like if I'm walking by, they'll be like, you're an athlete, aren't you? I'm like, yes. They're like, you play basketball, run track? I'm like,
yes, there it is. Yes.
So, that's a bit frustrating. So you guys are right. We definitely need to get out there that, Black girls play other sports and it's so important. I know, but to add to your question, being a community coach helps, like being a volunteer for those community coaches. Cause I know, my mom coaches as a volunteer coach in my, county, and so many Black girls come and are like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know like this was an option for me. I didn't know you could play this in college. I didn't know about this sport in general. And it's so nice to see a Black girl in this position. And so I know even for me, when I was in high school, I went to 2 high schools. One was predominantly white and one was predominantly Black, which I got both sides of it. And I played for the predominantly white high school because that was my main high school that I can only play for them. And so I knew the head coach for the predominantly Black high school, Henry County High School, now McDonough High School. And he was like, please come out. And I came out and they were calling me ma'am and gave me the utmost respect, just respecting me. And we were the same age. Yeah. I was like, wait, we're the same age, I promise. But they were like, it's just so amazing that you're coming out and, giving your free time, not getting paid for this and just coming out to help us. And I was like, giving back. And because I want to see, Black girls in where I'm at. I want to see them bigger than where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And so giving back to the community, educating them about the sport will do a lot.
Yeah.
I just think that like it needs to be introduced to the younger girls because I feel like you're always introduced to the same 3 sports. And so if lacrosse was one of those sports that you're being introduced to at a young age, then I feel like a lot of younger girls would be able to realize that like, oh, this is something I can do when I'm older, or this is something that instead of just the classics, like I can branch out and do something different.
Exactly. So I feel like the biggest thing when we all think about all our ideas is exposure. And I think London, you hit on the big thing, exposure at a younger age, like not waiting until we're so much older where we think, even though, okay, we found out about this sport, but exposure to the youth, even adding it in gym classes. I think gym is the first place where a lot of kids get exposed to recreational sports. So I feel like having it in gym classes, just like you can grab a basketball or football, or you can start a race. It's like you can have a couple 5 lacrosse sticks on hand. So it's just like, have different stations and we can introduce this. How do you think coaches could recruit more Black players or just minorities, period? But I know all of us are Black. So, I
think just looking for that raw talent, like we were saying earlier, and just looking for talent in the lacrosse community in general. And not looking for that typical lacrosse player that look and what we should look like, so recruiting in non-traditional areas as well. I think that would help. Yeah.
I think that being intentional in your recruiting process, you're going to already see, a lot more white players than you are any other race. So you're going to have to like purposefully look for Black athletes and look for Hispanic athletes and look for, those different races to get them on your team because you're not going to see them as frequently.
I think like the both of you said, I think the coaches just need to be a little more, they need to be willing to branch out from what they think is like standard in lacrosse. So I think
for me I think at the end of the day, you have to take a chance. You have to take a chance when you're going to an area where the sport is not popular, But as a coach, I feel like it's not a chance that you haven't taken on any other player that you would have got from up north. I feel like as a coach, every coach has those players that they take a chance on. And I, like you said, Taylor, and I feel like being intentional, when you take that chance, looking at potential, looking at potentially what could this player, bring to the table, and really understanding the player's background. Because I feel like once you understand a player's background and where they're from as a player and how lacrosse is played there, then you know how to coach that player and help them reach their full potential. But if you just get a player from down south, or a player that, kind of play in some of our similar situations, and then you throw them into a culture or something that they're not used to, no matter how big or how good that player was before, I feel like they're still not going to thrive, because, people need help. You need that extra push. And so I feel like understanding that this could potentially impact my team now, or it could potentially impact the team later. But I just feel like coaches have to just take more chances on us altogether,
And I think that it's going to be, an adjustment for the lacrosse world, because a lot of, I just feel like most people at least from the South, and at least if you're going to get, minority players from the South, they're not going to have the same knowledge that the players are going to have in the North, like we discussed earlier. So it's like, you're going to have to be a little bit more patient with players in the South. And I know, as coaches, they're like, I want the best of the best. I got to win games. I got to do this. But like you said, take that chance.
I feel like some players just need a chance. They need that great coaching. Some players just need a year of great coaching. And, after that, they're that player again. It's not just potential anymore. They're that player, so.
And I think on top of that, some people just need a coach to believe in them, because if they see all these college coaches are like, oh, well, you haven't had this training, so you're not going to be good, then it's just depleting their confidence. And so if they have a coach that's like, oh, I see that you have the potential to be as good as everyone else, so, and then they give them that chance, I think it really will it helps them even more.
Exactly. I definitely agree.
People in the back.
Yeah. So if you guys had to give advice to just a young lacrosse player or a young Black lacrosse player or any young lacrosse player of any minority, what would you guys tell them?
I think I would tell them to believe in yourself and be confident in what you're able to do.
Okay, so my advice would be know your worth, always work hard, be true to yourself, and always reach out when you need it. Don't always try to do it by yourself. It takes a village to succeed. So, work hard and always ask for help when needed.
I would say that being a Black girl in lacrosse, sometimes you feel like singled out, you feel like an individual, and going to college, it might get harder. And I think that it's important to surround yourself with your culture and what your traditions are. So even if, as a Black girl, you don't have like this stereotypical, background, whatever, just find your people, find people that can support you and uplift you, because it's easy to feel alone sometimes in this sport that you are the only one.
I feel like if I had any advice to give to a young Black player, I would say be okay with standing out. And when I say be okay with standing out, I mean on the field, off the field, just be okay with almost being the center of attention, because whether you're playing or not, you're going to be noticed, and it's what you do while being noticed, what matters, how you carry yourself, confidence. Confidence is a big key. I feel like when I came into college, because the area that I came from, it's predominantly Black, that's all I know. Just being around a different culture, I lost confidence. I just lost confidence in my ability to talk and communicate with people. I lost my ability to just play on the field because everything was so different for me. I felt like Taylor said, even though Taylor was there and Janice at the time, it's just three of us. And at this moment, we don't all know each other, and at the end of the day, you still realize that it's only a small group of us, and we're all battling. We're in competition too. So just be okay with being the standout. And when you can own that you're the standout, that's when you can take over and be the player that you know that they know and you know that you can be.
That is like preparing you for life, you know, like unfortunately as Black women, we naturally just stand out because as minorities of all minorities, you know, like people just notice us when we walk into a room because we're different. So you just have to start a little earlier, you know, just get comfortable with being yourself.
Exactly.
I think you guys hit on it. I think just being confident, because if you you need to realize that yes, I may be the minority in this situation, but I know that I can be on level with the rest of these girls, maybe even better than the rest of them. So, yeah.
I would also say have an outlet. Your team, you want a team bond. Team bonding is so important, but it's okay to have friends outside of lacrosse because it being a predominantly white sport and your school having other Black students, like that's helpful as well to, you know, feel connected and grounded in the college that you go to. It's so important. So, yeah.
Thank you guys for sitting down and having this conversation. I think that we were able to talk about a lot of great things. And, you know, London, I wish you the best of luck in your growing career. Like, we will make sure we follow you here at Vitality Sports Media, and we're already huge fans already. And, you know, Taylon, I mean, amazing career, you know, so thank you for your contribution to the sport. Because as a teammate, as a player, you're someone that I look up to. And, you know, I hope to continue to follow in your shoes, not just on my team, but what I do in this sport. So, and Kamora, congratulations. Again, another great player who I look up to, you know, and congratulations on your transfer. You know, I feel like that's a big step in your career, and I wish you the best of luck.